Warning. This program contains strong language, auditory violence, and mental nudity. It is intended only for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to your uncensored home for World of Warcraft news and opinions. This is Unshackled Fury.
"2024 is drawing to a close, and Warcraft's future is only getting brighter as we look back on the year that was." So welcome back for episode 157 of your uncensored home for World of Warcraft news and opinions on Unshackled Fury. I'm your host, Berserker, and with me once again is the gift that keeps on giving, Mr. Jez Corden. Welcome back again, good sir.
Hello. How's it going? I missed your illustrious intro there because something went wrong with my headset, but it's I got it working at exactly the right time. So, hello,
Excellent.
hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
Well,
Yeah.
it's going. We're here. Last episode of the year for us today, right off the top, let people know. This will be the last episode of the year, so we'll be doing our year in review, the year that was, looking back on all kinds of stuff that we talked about and covered, or maybe didn't cover. I don't know. I'll have to look at my notes, and maybe it'll even surprise me. But looking back, and we're going to be on a bit of a break, holiday break. There's just, frankly, too fucking much stuff going on this time of the year. And I know there's traveling and there's stuff going on, so we're going to be on break for a bit. This might be a bit of a longer break, given my schedule. Probably looking at mid to late January by the time we come back. So, yeah, I'm sure we'll have something to talk about by then. Not that we don't now, but I'm sure we'll have plenty there. And between now and then, Jez, if you'll recall, on the last episode of this illustrious program, this piece of cinema that you and I have put together, you recall that last time I was quite apoplectic about the lack of hate-forged blaze cycles. Well,
Yes, apoplectic. That's a good word.
thank you. I have to put out a huge thank you to a member of the Unshackled Fury community, a roguish member of our community, who hooked me up with a code for a hate forged blaze cycle. And I want to be transparent in all these things. I never do this because I'm begging for things or asking for things, but I do want to recognize that somebody out of the kindness of their own heart felt it appropriate to send me one of those, and my deepest gratitude, because I'll be riding that fucker from here to eternity, because that is a fantastic ground mount for us. And yeah, there's another one, but they haven't got it yet, so this is the only one for now. I'm very excited.
I also got my hands on one.
Oh,
Which I shouldn't be able to because it's not available in Europe.
how did you do that?
So someone from my other podcast, my Xbox podcast, they were listening to me. They were listening to me complain about it, and they hooked me up.
Oh,
So,
my God.
Very lucky as well.
Riding hard, that warlock.
Yeah, like I was in Donegal with it, and like everyone was gathering around because no one's got them in Europe. So it's pretty cool.
Look at you.
I felt special for a moment.
The big celebrity. Look at you. Unbelievable. Well, this is what Warcraft can do for you, folks. Otherwise, Jez, all things well in the world of Mr. Corden and the Windows Central gang?
Yeah, it's been a hard couple of weeks. It's been Black Friday, which is a busy time for bloggers, you know. recommending products and all that fun stuff, but it's all done now and all over with. And I can just sort of breathe and let my hair down now for the rest of the year.
There you go.
Which is nice. I have barely touched WoW because of that workload. So I'm a little bit out of the loop. So you're gonna have to fill me in a little bit.
All right. Well, we'll definitely be getting to some stuff here later in the show about where we are and some exciting things potentially coming up this month. But between now and then, Jez, I've got our last metal album of the week, and I don't know, maybe it says a little something about where my head is at. Who knows? Maybe, potentially. But from July 14th, released July 14th, 1992, Countdown to Extinction by Megadeth.
Oh dear.
And if you don't know Megadeth is one of the what we call the big four in the metal scene, and this is only the second of those four, the third of those four that I've brought up. One more remains, and I'll pick a time and place for that one, I think. But Countdown to Extinction, this is one of their best albums. Some certified bangers on this one: Symphony of Destruction, the title track, Countdown to Extinction, Foreclosure of a Dream, Sweating Bullets, Skin on My Teeth. Like, these are some classic Megadeth songs, and this truly is, I think, one of the best albums to listen to just front to back. It's a whole album listener, not one of these you bought the CD or the tape back in the day for just one song. No, this is the whole damn thing. But this album definitely has certain political and military undertones to it. It was written during the time of the First Gulf War. It touches topics of suicide and taxation, and there's a lot of stuff going on in it. I have to separate the art from the artist a little bit, because I think Dave Mustaine, longtime frontman of the band, who has, I think, fired more people than anybody, he's gone in a direction I'm not really sure I can ever follow, but a lot of great statements being made on this album, and things that I think are truly still relevant 30 plus years later, I think, to most people, if not everyone. But it is a really excellent metal album, very toned down, very, very simple, nothing too crazy, just straight up classic metal. And I think it has some topics worth pondering, let's say. So, Jez, are you familiar with this album at all, or at least Megadeth?
No, I mean, I know of Megadeth. It's hard not to, but I've never really listened to them. Honestly, it's that era of metal is not my era of metal. So a lot of the times when I listen to that kind of stuff, it just kind of reminds me of, I suppose, my parents' generation a little bit. No offense. But
it's all right. No offense taken. Man. No offense taken.
I grew up on the Korns and the Slipknots of the universe. So
you're a new metal guy.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I kind of my taste evolved, I suppose, beyond them. But that was my era. What I consider classic metal. Slipknot, I suppose. A bit of Limp Bizkit,
Listen, I've seen Fred Durst and Limp Bizkit making the hell of a resurgence in the last year or two. I mean, he looks like Santa Claus now, man. But it's classic now. It's back. It's old. It's new again.
It's true. I mean, say what you want about Limp Bizkit, they've got some awesome musicians in that band. Like, even if some of the music's a bit corny, I suppose. But
Wes Borland is a legit guitarist.
Wes Borland, yeah.
He's legit.
Yeah, he's legit, but no, I don't know Megadeth so well. I've barely been listening to any music recently. Just so busy. Kind of sucks, man.
When you're so busy that you can't even listen to music, that might be the true mark of a very full agenda in your life. Too full.
Indeed, too full.
Well, there you go, folks. That is the recommendation, the final recommendation for the year, and something to ponder on is Countdown to Extinction by Megadeth, released July 14th, 1992. Again, certified metal banger. Lots of great tracks on that one. Now, Last rage topic of the year, and another, I think, universal challenge that needs to be addressed. So, Jez, let's get into it.
Let's rage.
I know to look at me, maybe to listen to this show, you would probably not say, or the first thought that would come to your mind would probably not be that I am a man of culture. Probably not spending time in symphony halls. But you would be wrong, surprisingly enough. I do, on occasion, a few times a year, I do find my way to orchestral performances here in the Sacramento area. There are quite a few touring groups that come through, and there's all kinds of stuff. It's not always Christmas time with Trans-Siberian Orchestra. It's like real, like legit, like we had London Philharmonic type stuff, right? It's the real deal. And one of the things you'll notice that is different between a show like that and a show like, I don't know, let's say you go to a metal show. Crowds sometimes are a little bit different, although the age of some of these metal shows is starting to creep up on those of the symphony shows. I'm not going to lie. But the response, the crowd interaction, right? It's different. When you're at a metal show, you're jumping and banging and yelling and screaming and pumping your fist and hitting the mosh, and like you're letting it all hang out. That's like
Figuratively speaking.
Figuratively, well, hopefully. It's like if you go to like an MMA show, you go to a UFC show in Vegas, like very noisy, very loud. But if you go to a typical show with a symphony, it's more like watching old Pride events in Tokyo, where the crowd is very quiet, right? You wait for some moment to happen, if I can use that analogy. You wait for a song to end, or you wait for something to go on. But usually, before you clap and cheer or give your encores or whatever, you're sitting mostly quietly, right? But I have found a trend, Jez. There is this trend, and I don't know if this has always happened, but I feel like it is happening more recently, where the people sitting behind me feel that I didn't go there. I didn't pay to hear the orchestra, Jez. I paid to hear them hum along with it. And not just like hum along with it, but like hum along with it noisily and off note, off key.
Damn.
And I'll just be real. I didn't pay to hear you. I didn't pay to hear you, old lady, or whoever else is behind us. I paid to hear the people on stage. So if you find yourself enjoying one of these shows, keep it to yourself. No need to hum along. Nobody wants to hear that, especially when it's out of tune, off key. Madness. Except now, sometimes you might have a great inside joke with your child where, to piss off your wife, every once in a while you just go and make a bunch of humming noises, and she knows what you're talking about. She tells you both to shut the fuck up, and that is kind of fun. I'm not gonna lie, that is a great silver lining to such an event. But please, dear God, dear Jesus, dear God's in the heavens, if you are at one of these shows where crowd participation is not being asked for and or required, please keep it to yourself. Thank you. Thank you for coming to this TED Talk. All right. Lots of news and review to get to now that I've got that off my chest. So why don't we go ahead and get into it? So kicking off the year of 2024 on Unshackled Fury, we had one of the most seismic events we've ever had, and it's probably the biggest thing that happened all year, which was that you, Jez, joined the show officially. Unbelievable.
Woohoo!
It's almost been a year. Almost been a year
already. God,
almost been a year.
that's crazy.
Unbelievably enough, Jez has chosen to join this crazy little shambling wagon down the road, and we've been having some fun this year and enjoying all the crazy shit that's been popping up. And Jez, I know we've all enjoyed getting a fresh perspective on particularly the business side of things. You have brought such a great just well of knowledge when it comes to all of that, and I've had a lot of comments from listeners saying, you know, how much they enjoy hearing more about that in a way that, you know, we never brought to the masses before. But has the year been all right for you? I hope it hasn't been too tortuous.
I mean, professionally, it's been a strange year, you know, coming out of the pandemic where everyone was stuck at home, and it was a boom time for us, right? So, but like in capitalism, it's like they always want you to go up. So like constantly being compared to the pandemic era in our figures is weirdly stressful. And I think like a lot of people in a variety of industries are probably feeling that way right now. But like it'll be different for other industries, right? Like industries that had to shut down in the pandemic, this is their boom time, you know? So, or like hospitality industry, hotels or whatever. So it has been a bit of a weird year professionally, working at a corporation, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, there's been a lot of cool stuff, you know, joining the show. World of Warcraft's been doing really well. It's been nice to see World of Warcraft sort of emerge from the doldrums of Shadowlands, come back pretty strong in Dragonflight, and then come back even stronger in The War Within so far, you know. Waiting to see. I'm really eager for the next season, though, at this point. Feels like it's been a long while waiting for that. But, yeah, overall, I think it's been generally a pretty good year. Or it could, you know, it could have been worse, I suppose. You know, it could always be worse. There it is.
I guess the big question for the minds on some folks is, will you be continuing on in your journey with Unshackled Fury?
Of course, if you'll have me.
Well, there it is. That's it. That's the biggest news there is. Another go around with Jez. You know, he hasn't gotten tired of us yet. This is what I say to my wife all the time. You tired of me yet? She goes, no, I'm not tired of you yet. Okay. All right. Another victory. Let's chalk him up. So other than Jez joining us officially in January, one of the things that we talked about way back then was the 2024 roadmap, as has now become the norm for us, seeing these roadmaps. And we just got the 2025 one here recently. We'll get to that a little bit later. But looking ahead, we knew the War Within was coming. We knew that it was going to be sometime in the summer. I think we all kind of guessed around the right time, but we were starting to get a sense of what this year was going to look like, with a couple of smaller patches to end Dragonflight Season 4, something with a pirate flag, which we know what that ended up becoming. There was still some kind of unknowns here. What was Pandemonium? What was Time Running Pandemonium? What the fuck does that mean? You know, there were some questions that remained out there about what this year was going to entail, but we did have a pretty good sense of flow, and they ended up, I think, matching that pretty damn closely in terms of what our expectations were. And so the first of those many patches that came was 10.2.5. Remember that? Seeds of Renewal? Oh my God, a whole way back in January. That launched. That's when we reclaimed Gilneas, and that was, if you know, it was cool, if not a little abbreviated. We also got follower dungeons, and what Jez has, I think, convinced me, I think you've convinced me, Jez, has been the creation of a new Night Elf starting zone in Belemeth, although they seem intent on shooting that idea down. I'm with you, Jez. There seems to be too much there to just have it be nothing, like, of significant purpose.
Yeah, so. I don't know. You never know with Blizzard, because they're very careful with their messaging, you know, when they tease something or don't tease something. But I just kind of feel like you don't make something that expensive with the plan to never use it. So I don't know.
Pretty
it's
big.
My conspiracy theory, you know.
I'm with it. You know what? I'm putting my tinfoil hat on for that one. So we had 10.2.5 and brought the Dragon Isle epilogue, Dragon Riding Worldwide, the Azerothian Archives, if you did that little quest chain. and the Outland Cup, things that we had going on. But unfortunately, I think the other biggest news that came out in January was we'd been riding high off of Dragonflight. We've been riding high off of BlizzCon, and then more layoffs. And as we have talked about, and Jez, you know better than anybody, the tech industry, the game development industry, just there's so much globally that has gone wrong in terms of the tech sector, and the layoffs across the board have been monumental. And I don't know that there's any way to overstate how big it has been. I think for a lot of us, it was surprising, although maybe we shouldn't have been surprised. After the buyout from Microsoft, we thought Microsoft was going to solve every ill, and we weren't going to see stuff like this again. But again, I think that's, our own naivete or, lack of knowledge on how any of this works. But that was a really big bomb that just effectively, I think, blunted a lot of the goodwill that we were having at that moment. And now coming out of that, now that was the beginning of the year, now that we're at the end of the year, Jez, it seems like it just continued for the industry following that point. I mean, even through today.
Yep. We are not out of the woods yet with the game industry. It's just what they're seeing is costs go up, but new users actually go down. Again, this is like part of this is post-pandemic, similar to what I was talking about earlier with me. They were like, people will be stuck at home forever, so let's hire 10,000 more people. Exaggerating, or not in some cases, actually. Some companies really beefed up during the pandemic to take advantage of that wave and deliver shareholder profits, max profits. And now it's like, actually, a lot of those users didn't become permanent gamers. A lot of people dabbled and tried out gaming for the first time during the pandemic. A lot of those people just didn't come back. They didn't come back. They didn't become permanent gamers. And now studios having to pay the price. A lot of these sort of studios that were set up with venture capital money during the pandemic, they're shutting down. I saw a couple of ex-BioWare staff studios, Casey Hudson studio, and I can't remember the other guy's name off the top of my head. But 2 BioWare directors, they left EA and set up studios. Both of those studios have now shut down without releasing a game. They've all run out of money. So, it's still a weird time in the industry. Ubisoft's got tons of issues on right now of its own. Tencent reportedly going to buy them out, which is going to be funny. See how that all goes. But yeah, the industry is undergoing all kinds of upheaval right now. Blizzard ain't out of the woods either, really. I mean, Blizzard's facing some stiff competition right now. Marvel Rivals eating into Overwatch's lunch. Path of Exile potentially eating into Diablo's lunch a little bit, because at the end of the day, a lot of these games, they're not attracting new users. Like I said, they're just stealing users from other people. Path of Exile is going to take from Diablo's audience, and Marvel's Rivals probably going to take from Overwatch's audience as well. So, it's going to be interesting to see how Blizzard navigates that. But at least for us, World of Warcraft has no real competitor at the moment. At least not in the West. So
the WoW killer has not emerged in the West yet.
It has not.
They're their own assassin at the end of the day, I think.
But now, Riot Games is working on their League of Legends MMO. Which,
True.
We still haven't seen materialize yet, but they're still plucking away on it. Maybe that'll give WoW some serious competition to think about, but Blizzard seems to be able to rise to the challenge when they do get competition. I think a lot of the good stuff that's happened to World of Warcraft recently was because of competition from Final Fantasy XIV, and that kind of gave them a kick up the arse. But something like Riot, you'd imagine, might be even stiffer competition. So we'll see how that one goes down.
As anyone who knows anything about the Monday Night Wars, WWF versus WCW, you know that things were good and better when there was competition between, those two, and it only suffered after WCW got bought out. So I am a firm believer in the power of competition, making good stuff. But unfortunately, as you've mentioned, a lot of these shops closing down, and as part of these layoffs in January, we also found out that Project Odyssey, which was the survival game that Blizzard had been working on for however many years, and all we'd seen publicly was concept art about it, was the whole thing was shuttered. And the whole team let go, or at least a good chunk of it. And that, I think, is another one of these huge blows to the community, because we're all still thinking about Titan, which we never really saw or know much about publicly. And it turned into, parts of it anyway, Overwatch, but we know how damn well that whole debacle really hurt them and has hurt them long term. And so to see another big project just completely get wiped off the map, that was a big shock, especially considering that they had said something about it publicly to give us some indication that this thing was coming, and now nothing. And so that, I think, was a really hard start to the year.
It was. But it's kind of funny, like out of the ashes of Titan, we got Overwatch, and I think out of the ashes of Odyssey, and I really wish I kept the gameplay footage I had of that game, because it looked really good, and I think if people saw it, they'd be like, "Oh wow, that actually looks really good." It looked like a fairy tale kind of. It had a strong fairy tale vibe. I mean, it was clearly built on. It looked like Overwatch, Pixar stylish, but fairy tale vibe. It looked really, really good. It kind of reminded me of Fallout 76 a bit, with player vendors, and at least what I thought looked like a player vendor, like a potion vendor that a player had built. But it wasn't for this world. But I do think that the sort of the engine and some of the code they used to build that game will live on in whatever this rumored StarCraft project is, which now counts one of the Far Cry directors among its lead devs. So, like, it sounds as though...
Really?
Yeah. So, this is the rumor from Bloomberg, Jason Schreier, I think. He said that, I believe it was him anyway, off the top of my head, they've managed to grab one of Ubisoft's Far Cry directors, and they're looking to make an open world shooter based on the StarCraft IP. If that's true and they manage to pull it off, it could be really good, because Far Cry has some really great games in its sort of pantheon. Like Far Cry 5 was really good. Far Cry 2 was like gritty and good. Far Cry 3 had a great story. Far Cry 4 and Far Cry 6 not very good. And then Far Cry Primal was... I liked it, but it was controversial, I guess. You played as a caveman. No guns in that game. Bow and arrow, spears. It was weird, but weirdly good. I liked it. But if they can make it like Far Cry 5 with a StarCraft universe with a good story, I think that could be really, really powerful. And from what I've heard, some of the team that worked on Odyssey have gone on to work on that game. So hopefully we get some out of the ashes of that.
Yeah. Well, I would be very excited. As we know, this show, it may be about World of Warcraft, but I think the subheader is it's also about StarCraft. So anytime we get StarCraft news, we're gonna fucking talk.
There's a lot of crossover between Warcraft, StarCraft, Diablo, Overwatch fans, I think sometimes, but Blizzard, cross-pollinates. Like Warcraft people work on StarCraft and vice versa and stuff like that. So it can't be that Warcraft carries the whole company on its shoulders. Like they need other games. Yeah, they shouldn't, and it doesn't. Like Diablo and Overwatch do well in their own right, but it's imagine that all the games were firing on the same cylinders that World of Warcraft is. It'd be really happy times, and it would lead to a better Warcraft as well, probably.
Yeah,
but
sure. So that's where we started, and heading into then February, I of course had a Super Bowl hangover because my San Francisco 49ers are fucking dog shit and apparently can't win Super Bowls anymore, and they're even worse this year, so that's all that needs to be said about any of that business. But as we went through February, Seeds of Renewal was live at that point, and truly I think the biggest news that came out of that period of time was that Steve Denuser left Blizzard. And as we recall, he had been given the keys to the castle over at World of Warcraft. The Dragonflight was essentially his baby coming out of Shadowlands and all this turmoil, and Alex Afrasiabi getting booted and the lawsuits and like all of these things, right? And so Steve Denuser was the captain of the ship, and then he just sort of was gone, and nobody really knew why. And eventually it seemed like it was maybe one of a couple of things. Sounded like he was citing the return to office protocol as a big indicator of this, or wanting to move on and do other things. And then, I don't know, perhaps maybe this was a soft layoff of some type, but just, did we ever really settle on what happened with him and why he left?
I never found out the real reason, if there was anything more to the story, but I know that a lot of people, you know, who reacted to the work from home culture and set up home offices and then sort of got into a lifestyle of working from home, you know, they didn't want to come back to the office, you know. And I think for a lot of people, when you bite that pill and it's like, oh wow, I saved so much money doing this, it's hard to go back. Like, I haven't worked in an office for oh man, like 10 years now, 12 years.
Oh my God.
Something like that. So way before the pandemic. I've been very lucky that I could do a job working from home for even longer than, you know, most people. I can't imagine going back, dude. I can't, there's no way you can get me back in an office. That's like my worst nightmare. So, I don't blame people who leave their job if they're like, yeah, you got to come back in the office. I'd be like, nah.
See ya. Peace.
I'm out. Bye. I'm gone, baby. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's, you know, at the time, I was always really high on Steve Denuser because I felt like he was somebody who really cared about the universe, and even if people didn't agree with decisions that he made, then he genuinely cared about the characters and what we were doing and where we were going and why. And that, you know, coming out of Shadowlands and just everything else that had happened just in the real world, the Dragonflight was this sort of like this soft landing where, and we talked about this before, it was not dark, it was not gritty, it was not big, you know, universe ending shit. It was a smaller story, very heartfelt, very people
wanted that.
Yeah, it was more emotional in that way, and I never had a problem with that. I thought it was a good momentary change of pace. We knew it wouldn't last, but it was a good sort of interstitial, and I thought Steve was doing great. But after he left, man, people really let it hang out. They had all kinds of things to say about him, and I wish him all the best.
Figuratively speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, people went in on Steve Denuser. I mean, you know, people credit him for the terrible direction of Sylvanas, you know, which irritates me personally. You know, Sylvanas is one of my favorite characters, and it is kind of weird. It's weird and wild how Sylvanas was handled. Like, to build her up in interviews saying like, oh, she's a smart tactician, she wouldn't be a garrosh, and then just to basically make her a garrosh is difficult to swallow. It's a difficult pill to swallow, but at the same time, he's just a dude, you know, doing his best, and you know, he didn't want to, you know, make it bad. Also, deadlines. I'm sure that some aspects of this were like, this is the result of a rush job. Activision saying you've got to get this done by now. Just ship it, rather than iterate. Because I'm sure if they had more time to iterate and really sit down and take it slow and think about what the implications of what they're doing here, you know, they'd realize they can't just go ahead with all these story changes that they did implement without having a good enough payoff at the end. And the payoff was non-existent, you know, so
yeah.
Part of me wonders if there had not been maybe some internal criticism, but at the same time, it was a different era at Blizzard back then. You know, would Steve Denuser deliver better results under the current cadence, which, you know, they've planned out all the major story beats in advance now, and they've got plenty of time to iterate on some of that stuff and react to it internally and just sort of think about things and figure things out and be like, oh, actually, maybe this doesn't make total sense. Maybe we should change this, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Using WWE as another allegory. He talks about the Monday Night Wars. I was often like thinking how, because I've started watching it again in the last year, and you compare like what they used to do in WWE to what they're doing these days, where Triple H plays this, when Triple H is writing, they play this really long game.
Yes.
Where they think what the major story beats are going to be over the year, and then in the events they'll call back to things that happened ages ago, and they're really thoughtful, and it's like all those plot threads, and it's like, wow, this is so much better than it used to be, where it was like, it was rare that we get callbacks to previous things that had happened. And it was like, hang on, why are these two wrestlers teaming with each other? They used to hate each other a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But they acknowledge those things now in the writing. It's like, the characters feel like they have a more consistent presence, a more persistent character. Like, I was watching a video recently where they were talking about all the issues CM Punk had with Roman Reigns, and they could have just threw all that under the bus. That's what they would have done in the early 2000s, the late 90s. They would have just forgot all that stuff happened. But in the era of social media, nobody forgets anything now.
No.
And I think, that's because they've been able to adopt a more thoughtful approach to it, I guess. And I think that's what Chris Metzen represents for World of Warcraft, is a more thoughtful approach. But you never know what completely went down, which is why I never want to blame devs directly, because there's so many constraints on game development that can frustrate the creative process, especially when you're working for a corporation like Activision or now Microsoft, and they're like, just ship it. I mean, maybe it is his fault, maybe it isn't, but what I do know is that nobody sets out to make a bad game or disappoint people. So, yeah.
No, I think as we talked about at the time, it felt a little bit like there was an arc that was in mind, and they're like, no, you can't kill Sylvanas, or you can't do this, and so they had to come up with something else.
Pivot.
The pivot, and I think that analogy of the long-term storytelling of Triple H now in WWE is, to Metzen and sort of the thoughtfulness about the canon, that really resonates, and that's part of the reason why we were so fucking excited to see him back and doing this World Soul Saga and everything else. We're like, Metzen's the man. Metzen's gonna get it on the right ship, and maybe that was it. Maybe Metzen being there didn't need Steve Denuser anymore. Maybe he's like, fuck it, I can't compete with the king. I'm getting out of here. I wouldn't blame him for that either. So he left, and at that point in February, we were starting to hear about what this pirate flag fucking thing is, patch 10.2.6, and it ultimately became Plunderstorm, which is going to be back next month again, by the way. And this was this matchup battle royale whole system that happened up there in the Arathi Highlands, and I don't know that I ever quite came around to it. I know the whole pirate aesthetic really pleased lots of folks, and the play style, the rewards, and the way that all works, battling down to the final person. A lot of folks like it. It's a very popular format, and it seems like Blizzard was able to come up with a very Warcraftian way to craft, to make something, to mold something in that fashion. With it coming back in 2025, I'm sure I'll take a look at it. I always do. We'll see how much I actually dig it. But Jez, are you looking back on it now, almost a year later? Do you have fond memories of Plunderstorm? Do you look forward to playing it again next month?
I did not particularly enjoy Plunderstorm the first time around. I bounced out very quickly, but I also kind of felt like there's something here, maybe, with some iteration and some tweaks. I hope that when they do bring it back, it's not just the same. I hope that they've examined it and maybe made it a little better, a little bit more interesting.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I do look at the rewards that people have got. Some of my guildies have the pirate stuff, and I am a little bit jealous sometimes.
That's how they get you.
So, yeah, the transmog, So maybe I'm just like, maybe I will grind it out for the transmog and be a pirate for a day. But we'll see.
Yeah, that was my note that I had here. Is it needs a better reward system, just in terms of the grind was terrible. And I know that they made some tweaks and they added trios and they did some things. It's definitely, it's definitely better to do it in certain formats than others. But man, I was just getting my fucking ass kicked every time, and there was just there was no good for me in there. So we'll see if maybe 2025 iteration is a better partner for us. But at the same time, in March, we also had Hearthstone turning 10 freaking years for Hearthstone. And I remember when, that was first being put out, I'm like, oh man, if they put that on a phone, shit is over. And yeah, it turned out to be very popular once it was not just on like a one format. It expanded, and it has just grown from there over the years, and it's got 1 million expansions and all the stuff that's happened, and still going strong. And by God, we're getting some StarCraft related thing happening in the near future here. Very excited about that. Hopefully they've recorded some new voice lines for Jim Raynor. I would love that. That would be fantastic. But Jez, Hearthstone, is that in your repertoire at all? Did the StarCraft talk get you fired up? Is it on your phone?
I think it is currently installed on my phone. I play it here and there, but like I find it super difficult. Right, I'm not particularly smart for one thing. Also, I can't keep up with the meta. It changes every few seconds.
Oh God, no.
And all that kind of stuff. So I play Battlegrounds when I played it, and I have won a few Battlegrounds matches, and I felt really smart when I do it. But then sometimes I wonder, did I just not get lucky and look into a bunch of good combos here, and everyone else I'm playing with is idiots? I don't know, man. It's not my cup of tea. I know some people love Hearthstone and that kind of thing, but I wish I was smarter. It makes me feel dumb, so I don't play it because it makes me feel dumb.
I feel like a fucking child every time I look at it. And I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. The Battleground seems to be kind of the level setting right there where you kind of get a better chance. But I never thought it would grow like this to the degree that it has, where now you have to have seasons and cards that are in play. And like, it's a full on, it's like, Magic and these other like real big card-based games where now you have to have all these different rule sets and what's allowed and when, and then it also has like all this story expansion stuff that's going on over here. Like, there's so much to it now. They've really grown that thing out, and I have to say, I don't know if Celestalon is still the one in charge over there, but they've done a wonderful job with that part of the franchise. I have to say,
they've done a great job.
It is really impressive. So,
I think one of the issues they're gonna struggle with is cutting through that reputation of everyone thinks it's too hard or too inaccessible or it's too late to play it. Because that's what everyone I talk to says. Like, it looks cool, but it's way too late for me to get into. I don't know how they'll be able to overcome that. But I suppose, like, as well, like the physical aspect of Magic the Gathering and other card-based games, I think that's also lacking in Hearthstone. I think there needs to be a physical aspect to the game, whether it's collectible cards or physical tournaments. I think that could be cool if they wanted to go down that road. I'm surprised
they haven't done that.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems like such an easy merch thing to do.
Exactly. And Activision of yesteryear would have done that because they had this whole Toys to Life division. Guitar Hero with the guitars, and then they also had Skylanders with the little figurines. So, like, you would have thought that Activision would have been all over that, but for whatever reason, it never happened.
It is interesting. I don't know, but it's the future is limitless for Hearthstone, and it will, I'm sure, be seeing much more of that in the years to come. But 10 years this past March, and then coming into April of this year, we got our first real look at sub numbers. The first real look that we've had probably a decade. And this was due to John Haidt, who was like the general manager for WoW or whatever his specific title was, who left 2 months after this happened. He gave a presentation at the GDC where he had some slides and talked about the churn of World of Warcraft, lessons learned, and some things. And there was a mock-up that they did showing expansion starting with Legion going up to Dragonflight. So we don't have anything for War Within. So this is prior to that. Showing kind of the subscription numbers. They didn't give actual numbers, but you could kind of guess. And I think Bellular was one that was able to kind of tease out some of these numbers. And we looked at where coming into Dragonflight and having been out for a little bit, in combination with Classic and the other things going on, the World of Warcraft was in the best state that it had been in quite some time. And it did, show that the bottoming out, like in Battle for Azeroth, we knew it was going to be pretty bad. It was pretty bad. The churn during Shadowlands, it was pretty bad. But that World of Warcraft really was recovering through Dragonflight. And I would love to see what it is, post War Within launch, into September, October, like what those numbers look like historically compared to like Legion or when Classic launched and stuff like that. I know that one of the ways that they do it now is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jez, but they'll look at like how many Mythic Plus runs are happening, or how many dungeon runs are happening, or raid runs, or there's some other metrics that people are kind of trying to use to figure out what exactly is going on. But
World of Logs, API
Logs,
calls, all kinds of stuff. Like, it was weird because they used to use Mythic Plus runs, but you can't really do that anymore because people can gear up through delves now. So then people were using like World of Logs reports instead, and and you can compare and contrast. But the problem is it's difficult because when they add new activities to the game, obviously that's going to reduce the amount of activities potentially that the raids have and all that kind of stuff. And also then the other modes like WoW Classic. Well, WoW Classic's just come out. You probably are going to have fewer Mythic Plus runs and stuff like that. So it's not exactly an ideal metric, but it does, the point being, it does seem to be doing pretty well. And I think Blizzard themselves reported something like they've got more players in China than they've ever had now, or something like that. The game is monstrously popular in China.
Right. They got China back.
They got China back, which is like, huge market for them. And obviously the business model over there is a little bit different, but it's still vast amounts of money, and Chinese people love their online games, right? So
huge money.
The game seems to be doing quite well. But yeah, never know for sure without the hard figures.
Yeah, those earnings calls back in the day were some shit where we used to, pour over those figures and look at all that stuff, and then I guess just it's kind of like mentioned earlier, in the age of social media, nobody ever forgets anything. It's like once you start putting those numbers out and you got these fan sites that are out there just combing through all this stuff, you got to be really careful about what you say. But that was the first real like hard look into the sub numbers that we'd seen publicly in quite some time, and that was really, I think, refreshing for a lot of us to see. But also in April, we had season 4 finally kicked off for Dragonflight. I don't know how much anybody did in that. I get the sense that season 4 was not really well received, which I don't know. I don't know that's why. I'm not going to confidently say that's why we're probably not going to have one for a while. I don't think the story that we're in right now really allows for that much time. But I think that might be the last season 4 we see for a little while.
Yeah, is that like the weird sort of legacy season they do where you do all the raids? Yep. I despise those seasons, but at the same time, I don't mind having a reason to quit for a few months, so and catch up on the other games and play my backlog. So keep them going, Blizzard. I won't play them, but sure.
Help Jez clear his backlog, please.
I'd much rather have a new raid, but if you ain't going to give me one, I'll skip ahead and play, I don't know, something else. I barely touched Diablo since the expansion came out. I got so many games I want to play. It's just a monstrous amount of games that I just can't fit in because of everything. So yeah, bad WoW season's a great excuse to go and play another game.
It's a nice problem to have sometimes. Yeah. Well, speaking of new things, I believe it was in April, Jez, that we had the big War Within Alpha London kickoff, which you were at.
I was, yeah. I was at the, I was in London. It's the first Blizzard event, I think, that I've ever been to. Or first, like, closed press sort of Blizzard-y event. That was cool. Took some pictures
Now-
with Charlemagne, which will never see the light of day. I didn't show you those.
You have yes, you did. You have to share those with the world. I think I told you that when I saw them.
No,
That's. I know that the
one will
horde
see
in you
this.
does not want the public to see that you did this, but I mean, it is a wonderful moment in time that I think the whole world needs to witness.
I
but-
don't know about that.
That was pretty exciting. You know, typically when this stuff happens, you know, I think as a player, you always feel a certain amount removed from these kinds of things. And with this being in London, right, this is not something that they typically do. And it seems to me like they've been better about incorporating our European partners out there.
Yeah, I think
But now
so.
looking, what's that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. What do you, I don't know, what was like the biggest takeaway from getting to do something like that and actually being there? Was it cool to be around like all these other folks? Was it weird? Was it nice just to be acknowledged? What, you know, kind of thinking back on it now, what was like your biggest takeaway from being there?
The first thing that popped into my head when you said that was just the passion. You know, I think when you see people like Holly on TV or on a video, you know, there's this, I don't know, this sort of unwritten kind of expectation that, you know, this could be rehearsed or whatever, you know. I don't know, it's at least for me, my brain just thinks like if it's on TV, it's not real. It's not a real thing, right?
Yeah.
But when you meet someone in person, it's completely different, you know. And when like you're there with Holly and the other developers, and you can just, it's not rehearsed, it's not scripted, but you can still feel their passion and their love for the franchise and the community, you know, importantly so, the community. That's what my biggest takeaway there was, you know. And also I was just grateful to have not completely messed up my time at the event, I guess.
That's always a plus.
Yeah, it
you
sure
know,
is.
making good on it, and you know, not making them look, because that's part of the challenge too, right? You don't want to make them look like idiots because you came along and they invited you, and then you act up and whatever else, and they're like, well, fuck that guy, we're never doing that again. You know,
Yeah, but you
gotta
also-
be good about it.
You also don't want to give them an easy ride, right? Because you know, people have got a lot of questions, and you want to hold them accountable. Because at the end of the day, we're giving them money. We're giving them a lot of money. In some cases, I don't even want to know how many race changes I've spent over the years. But you know, so it is a weird balance of like trying to be friendly and nice, but also, hey, I've got to find out why you ruined Sylvanas, you know, and stuff like that, you know.
I hate to ask, but I have to.
Yeah, kind of thing. It's weird being press. I'm not a particularly big fan of it, but oh well, gotta pay the bills.
Gotta pay those bills, and
Gotta pay
you know,
the bills.
at least you got to go and you got to see, you know, as part of this being the alpha kickoff, you got to see a lot of the major features first. You know, that was part of the, you know, the alpha kicking off was, hey, here's a bunch of the initial stuff like usual that we're gonna see, and we got to enjoy that swell of excitement, you know, because it only happens once really every couple of years now where, oh, it's all the new shit all at once. It's that big group of all of it. So it's kind of cool to see that, and actually knowing somebody that was there and got to see it in person. I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of rad, especially because you're on this show and are able to speak directly to the situation. But coming out of that, in May, we had finally our then next patch, patch 10.2.7, Dark Heart. I know you all remember Dark Heart well, and I know it was one of your favorite patches of all time, as this was the final chapter for Dragonflight. This was the proverbial handoff to the war within. This is when we first got summoned to Dalaran to investigate the Harbinger. And we all know how that went for Dalaran. This is also the patch when the time-running Pandemonium WoW remix Mists of Pandaria went by like 19 different names, but that's when this finally hit and proved to be so popular that I guess we're going to be doing it again in Legion, which, you know, Legion was a great expansion. Nothing wrong with that. We also learned in May, and this was not a surprise to Jez, certainly a surprise to some of us, that BlizzCon would not be happening in 2024. Not a big surprise looking back on it. There's a lot going on. I think, Jez, as you mentioned, it is not a winner when it comes to money. It's a purely marketing and advertising event that loses the company a lot of money. But I still maintain that because it is such a cornerstone of the community, such a foundational event for this group, I have to believe that it's coming back. Maybe not, maybe not even in 2025, but I have to believe that BlizzCon will be back at some point. But now that we're, some time removed from this and the relationship has continued on a little bit with Microsoft, Jez, what would you say if you had to give it odds, percentage wise, of BlizzCon coming back in the next 2 years? What would you say?
100%.
Ooh.
Next 2 years, 100%. I don't know if BlizzCon's coming back next year, but I was pretty much assured that it's not gone forever. So I do expect it to come back. Okay. But I think they'll wanna maximize the return on investment. So, i.e., they'll want to do a BlizzCon when they've got a ton of cool stuff to show for it, rather than just one WoW expansion and maybe Diablo patch or whatever. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's when the StarCraft's ready to come back. Maybe it's when they've got a new expansion to show off. All those games line up at the same time. I think that's when they'll probably bring it back. So maybe not next year, but I could certainly see it the year after. But we'll see. I'll try and find out something more concrete soon.
So 100% chance that we're going to get you out here and get you to some fine California cuisine. That's what I'm hearing. First round's on me. So unfortunately, that was a bit of news that was shared with us back in May, along with Christy Golden, longtime Blizzard writer, author in her own right, outside of Blizzard franchises. But Christy Golden laid off over there at Blizzard, and as we talked about, story and franchise development and some of the publishing, I think, Jez, you'd mentioned, these were areas in which Blizzard was downsizing because of redundancy with Microsoft. I still have a hard time with this one because she was such an integral part, I thought, of the Blizzard storytelling machine, and she always was very pointed about saying it's not just Warcraft. I'm involved in all of these other things. So to have one person, a creative, involved in so many things, and to let her go, that one still doesn't make sense to me, Jez.
Part of me wonders if it was sort of I don't know, they wanted to have a change the team up in a specific way or something. I mean, it sucks, and it is what it is, but I also, it's probably just they thought we can, get a good saving in here. One thing that I've noticed in the corporate world, when you climb up the ladder and you've been there for a long time, you get a lot of pay rises, right? Over time, pay rise. And it's like, oh, cool, my company's so generous, they're giving me all these pay rises. And then when it comes to layoffs, they're like, oh, who's really expensive and who's been with the company for 1 million years and has had 1 million pay rises, but we could get someone new without those pay rises and reset that salary back to square one. Which is kind of what happened, I think, personally, to Major Nelson at Xbox, who'd been there for decades. But he'd been there for decades, and it was and then they hired Tina Amini from IGN to lead programming for Xbox, and I have to imagine it was kind of a sort of a cold, logical money saving exercise in that scenario. So I don't know the ins and outs of why that was that decision was made, but it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, it's a tough one, and I know she's still out there on social media, and it seems like she's had a particularly difficult year, not just professionally but personally. So if you're, if you're out there on the social media scene and you see her, give her some love. Give her some love. She's really one of the best of us, and deserves, I think, better than she's been getting. So give her a little love if you see her out there. But for May, kind of wrapping up this portion of things. This is the end of Dragonflight, and it was, as we mentioned earlier, it was a different kind of expansion, but I still believe and will always believe that it resurrected what could have been a dead franchise, because it was certainly on its way. Shadowlands was a mess, and that's putting it lightly. It looked like the game, and you could see everyone had their own eulogy for the thing, but it really felt like Dragonflight pulled World of Warcraft out of the nosedive that it was in. So, final word, Jez. Looking back on Dragonflight and what it meant, what it established, hits and misses, what would you say about Dragonflight now here 7 months after its official end?
It was decent. I think I'm not a big fan of the dragon storyline, to be honest, since forever. I think the dragons are too... I like them when they're being evil. So I like Deathwing. Me, they're too alliance coded these days for me to find them interesting. No.
Got it.
I don't know. I think all those dragon-y kind of things, they all felt too vanilla, and I wasn't a huge fan of the writing. Personally, I felt like it was too softly, gently kind of thing. I know that was kind of the tone they were going for, but for me, it was a bit too Disney-fied on the nose. But I think it had to be that way. They had to make Dragonflight walk so the War Within could run, and now we're sort of in this, leading into this horror-themed, creepy eldritch monster sort of thing. Like when we see what Xalatath looks like for real, I'm really looking forward to that moment. I'm expecting some grotesque tentacle freak, mutant,
Yes.
I also, that being said, I did like the villains in Dragonflight, and although they're again, to use a wrestling term, they're kind of transitional champions, I suppose, in a way. The Firak, I thought was cool. I actually felt like he was a little bit wasted, and ish kind of sort of pushed too early, to use a wrestling term. So he kind of I don't think he met his potential because of that, but I did I really like, I can't remember his name now.
Iridikron,
that's it, the Earth dude. Iridikron's really cool and interesting, and I think if they build him up properly and deliver Iridikron well, and don't again push him too early, I think that could be a really, really unique. It could be a really, really unique angle there to build him up. I just hope that he doesn't end up being like a raid boss in a mid-season patch or something like that. I hope I hope he becomes something more than, maybe not an expansion.
A secret undermine boss.
Yeah, something like that. I hope he becomes like an expansion level threat maybe down the line. But maybe that's not his destiny. I don't know. But we'll see.
We haven't seen him since.
No, we haven't. And he gave the heart to Xalatath for some reason. I mean, his whole thing is he hates the Titans. He's a dragon supremacist or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see how that all goes. Overall, it was a solid expansion. I mean, I don't love it as much as some people did, but mainly because of the themes. But gameplay-wise, it was pretty good. And I was overpowered for a lot of it as a demonology warlord.
Even better. Yeah, it definitely was, as we've long discussed. It was a softer scene, and yeah, it had great bad guys, great enemies. Making some great establishment markers for the future. And I think the way that you said it is probably the best way to put it that I could think of in my mind. Is it walked so War Within could run? And is it going to be remembered? I think, as time goes on, is it going to be remembered more fondly? I think so. I think that, it's kind of like it goes back and forth a little bit, where people were really high on it and then people kind of went down on it. And I think as time goes on, people are really going to hold this one in high regard, because of, I feel like we're going to be using a lot of wrestling terms on this show probably from now on.
Yeah.
But it's sort of like, each era, right? It's there's that first, feud or champion or something that kind of changes the tone and the tenor and the flavor of everything that comes after it. And Dragonflight very much feels like a level setting, a reset, following the disaster ultimately that was Shadowlands. So, I loved it then. I still love it now. It's in my top 5, I would say, now that we're so many expansions deep. It's getting a little blurry. Wrath will always be number 1, but I'm blinded by my nostalgia. I admit that. If I had to go back and do a bunch of the stuff that I used to do, I'd probably be like, what the fuck am I doing? Even though I did that for a little bit when it was classic, and I'm like, man, warriors really suck leveling. But great stuff. Love Dragonflight. So following May, we took some time off, as we are wont to do, because we knew coming in to late summer, it was going to be all War Within all the time, and we had to be rested up and ready to go. I took a road trip, saw a lot of the West, saw some big trees, saw some deserts, saw some stuff. It was cool. I recommend going on road trips. That's all I'll say. If you can go on a road trip, I recommend doing it. See how long you can be trapped in a car with your family before you want to drive into a ditch. It was really good, I'm saying. So coming into then July, patch 11.0 launches. We are fully in it. We are in the War Within era. It finally kicks off. We get the War Within pre-patch, which adds warbands and skyriding and everyone's favorite Radiant Echoes events, which, listen, it might not have been the most exciting thing, but I leveled the shit out of my alts, which I never do. And I actually got a whole bunch, I think 4, which is a lot for me, up to max level. And, listen, it served its purpose. We also had the Visions of Azeroth quest line. So we are fully in July. We are fully now moving into the War Within era. And, listen, you don't have to like every pre-patch event. It doesn't have to be the greatest thing of all time. You have to think of it as a utilitarian purpose. It's there to get you to gear up your alts and level up your alts so you can jump into the expansion headlong with as many characters as you want and can. But I actually made use of it, Jez. I'm still very proud of myself. Have I touched those alts since? No. Well, maybe. I think I brought the DK out because he's my miner. So, now that we have a warband bank and I can just send his ass out to mine and he's leveling while he's mining. It's great. But the other ones, they're probably going to sit there until midnight. But there we went. In July, we are fully heading into the War Within era. And then, yes, August, War Within launches. And we had a bunch of drama about early access stuff. But Jez, I don't know. Are people still mad about the early access? I felt like in the end, it was kind of much ado about nothing and people just went on with their lives. Am I misremembering this?
Which one?
The early access to the War Within.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know what you meant. Yeah. People were
so
like,
impactful, we've already forgotten.
Yeah, people, the ship has sailed on that stuff, man. It's like, it's Microsoft's modus operandi now. Every single one of their games has an early access period. Indiana Jones just came out in early access a couple of days ago. Launches properly on Monday. So, it's...
Oh, that
it's
was early access?
Yeah, it's not out yet, technically.
I didn't even know. I thought that was out. Oh, no.
Yeah.
How much did it cost for early access on Indiana Jones?
Can't remember off the top of my head.
But that's the thing, right? Is they're just trying to get more money out of you.
Yeah, I mean that's the issue. The existential crisis the industry's faced with right now is there's no new users. So if we don't have new users, then we have to make more money on the users that we've got. So the early access is $80, $80 ruse, or is that regular access? Oh, that's just pre-order. No, is that regular access?
$80.
Or is that the cool access? I don't know. No, I think the premium edition you need. So the premium edition is £100. So I don't know what that's in America dollars, but it's probably quite a lot.
We'll just say it's $100.
Yeah, it's probably more than that, but I don't know.
It better be a good game. I'm gonna have to read the Windows Central review.
It's a good review. I recommend it.
Everybody go there, read your review. So War Within, we had our own early access drama. Of course, I took advantage of it thanks to Blizzard. Had my own codes. I do get these things on my own, but they let us in. We got in. And we hit the ground running with the War Within and an incredible leveling campaign. I still think back on it fondly. I think it's one of the best we've ever had. Every zone had, even the spiders, they had their own culture and flavor, and it is a cool ass zone. It's creepy as shit. Ashkahet has its own charm. But every zone hit, especially the Ringing Deeps, the cinematic at the end of that with all the Magni stuff. I mean, it was awesome. And I hope that this is the standard. I hope this is not the outlier. I hope that this is what we can come to expect from here on out, because that was an emotional, entertaining, at times hilarious campaign that I'm not the biggest leveler. I don't, as we know, do a lot of alt stuff, but I thought it was an absolute home run. I still think so. And we've seen the praise universally across the board. And, it varies a little bit from place to place. But I think for the most part, out of the gate, War Within has been an incredible hit for Blizzard. Every person I've talked to has nothing but praise. They're enjoying the game. Shit, I've even seen people come back who took long layoffs and are praising the changes that have been made or the way that things are being handled. And feedback, it's still being listened to, albeit slowly at times. I think Blizzard's still doing a really good job of being responsive. What an achievement, what a triumph that this is. And it's just the opening salvo. We haven't even seen the next patch. We're not even at 11.1 yet, and it's getting a little long in the tooth, but what a home run out of the gate. And now that we've had at least a couple months between now and launch, Jez, you have gone back and you've done your review. You've been paid to have an opinion and do a review on this, and I think you've even updated it since then as you've continued your play. But for our listeners here, where do you stand right now on the sort of the opening salvo from the War Within and that leveling campaign?
Opening salvo. This is, for me, this is like a top 3 expansion, I think. Like, I put this up there with, like, the way I felt during Wrath, the way I felt, like...
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of... When we think about Wrath in a nostalgic way, we think about how we felt during Wrath, right? Mm-hmm. And we don't think about how the dungeons were messed up. We don't think about how the endgame was weird. We don't think about how... the raids were screwed up, like how Naxxramas was way too easy, undertuned, and we don't think about how long that patch cycle was. We don't think about a lot of those negatives, right? When it comes to Wrath, what we do think about though is the way it felt, and it felt amazingly epic to be chasing Arthas down.
Yes,
a lot of those plot threads coalesced really well and really nicely. Kel'Thuzad. I think bringing Nax back was the right decision, given the fact that no one got to really experience it in vanilla because it was too damn hard when they released it. And then, So it was a cool sort of, it was a great sort of coalescence of interesting storylines, like the Blue Dragonfly going, because they were mental. They were mental out of the gate in vanilla, and it's like, why are they mental? We don't really know. And so a lot of those plot threads just sort of came together nice. Well, we did know.
Yeah.
They were pissed at us for using magic. But all that stuff came together nicely, and that's what we remember. That's what the point being. That's what we remember. Remember how it felt, and remember Arthas. Remember the epic music, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's really what I think people are going to remember from The War Within. Because we had like some amazing cutscene work, some amazing writing, some really big moments that are memorable moments. And I'm someone with a terrible memory generally, but I remember all the big moments from this expansion. Like Queen Ansarek, not the most amazing villain in the world, but she's sort of, again, she's there as a sort of a transitional villain to build up and sell Xalatath, but also sell the heroes that are involved. Sell people like Illyria, which isn't the most well-known character unless you're really into the lore or Chronically Alliance, and also deal with some of Anduin's ongoing issues, but do it in a way that isn't super cringe, because a lot of when they're dealing with these kind of things, I think, like, especially video game writers, when they're sort of trying to figure out some of these plot points, it often comes across as contrived or forced, and I feel like they've really nail it with Anduin. I feel like they really do, and which I think is really impressive for video game writing in general. So, and that's what people will remember. Like, people won't remember the fact that it had early access period that everyone was mad about on Reddit for 5 minutes. People won't remember the mid 20th anniversary celebration event, which wasn't the best. People won't remember having to do Blackrock Depths. People won't remember, the boring stuff, but they will remember like Xalatath solidifying her place as a consummate badass. I just hope they stick the landing, and that's kind of what we're waiting to see play out now.
There it is. Couldn't have said it better myself. I think that hits all the points, and you're right about the nostalgia. It's that epic feeling of this journey that you're on and being a part of it. It's why when I describe to people, they ask, why World of Warcraft? Why do you play that? What's the deal? And I said, imagine being part of like an epic story, like Lord of the Rings, but you are one of the characters. You get to have agency within that and like do something. Like it's that sort of like epic feeling and involvement, and you get to bring friends, which is cool, or find new ones, which is rad. So yeah, I think that is a very accurate description, and I think that is exactly how War Within is going to be remembered as we go. And in August, aligning with all of this, had an interview that came out with my personal Lord and Savior Chris Metzen, with Scott Johnson of The Instance, and we talked about a variety of things, but the one thing that I did want to bring back up, if you haven't listened to it, you should. It's always great to hear Metzen, and he's always saying shit he's probably not supposed to be saying, and making some, handler off screen scream into a pillow at night. But one of the things that he did drop, and we've talked about this a little bit before, is, so we know about the World Soul saga, that arc. So this is going to be, thinking in terms of patch cadence. 11 is War Within, 12 is Midnight, 13 is Last Titan. And he essentially let it slip or talked about the fact that right now they are planning up to 17. So not only are they, have they fleshed out this arc, they fleshed out like the next one, and then maybe the next one after that. Like they are shooting so far ahead now, and I think that's part of what gives confidence that like these cadences and these other things that they've got, that they're gonna hit them, but also that they're gonna learn from those lessons, like we talked about with Sylvanas, right? That we really believe that some pivot had to be made somewhere, because that shit just did not make sense at a certain point. Like something had to give, but now you have the architect in Metzen along with, you know, this team that's working on multiple expansions at a time and going that far ahead into the future. You know, again, I think there's always a certain anxiety, I think, amongst the player base. I admit that I have this myself, and maybe I'm only speaking for myself, but I always have this sort of anxiety of like, how long can this go? Like, how long can this ride go? How long is World of Warcraft going to be an active, developed thing? Because what we're experiencing with this game is crazy. It's 20 fucking years old. There's still brand new, awesome stuff. Some of the best stuff they've ever made is being made right now. And it still continues on. You know, for myself, this game has been out basically since I got out of college. And as I mentioned before, you know, looking ahead at the next 20 years, which they fully believe, they're talking about decades with the player housing, right? So, I mean, we're talking about this game going on well into like my retirement years. I mean, it's you don't have anything to compare this to. I mean, I've been playing Mega Man 2 since I was like 7 years old, but they're not actively developing Mega Man 2. It's the same damn cartridge I've been playing all these years. This is an active, vibrant, live thing. And to see that there is still this much time, attention, and care being put towards it. And I know it makes money, monthly subscriptions, it's raking it in. I get all of that, but there still has to be a core group of people behind it that care about it, that love it, that cultivate it. And to see that there is this much planning, this much foresight happening. Jez, I'm still shocked that they are thinking that far into the future. 17. That's 6 more from now. That's crazy. But it's awesome.
It is. It's awesome. It's awesome, dude. You know, if you're a Warcraft fan, potentially we're eating good, you know, and I think like a lot of Warcraft fans are kind of, there's a little bit of PTSD there where it's like,
yeah,
I don't want to get too excited because I don't want to get too disappointed. But,
yeah,
you know, if all goes to plan, I think plenty of reasons to be excited.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope Chris does more interviews, even if they're not with me. That's okay. I understand. I'm the child he never wanted, but as long as he's talking to somebody, that would be all right. So, a successful launch, I think, overall for War Within in August, and then coming into September, Season 1 finally went live. We have the Nerebar Palace raid, and the Race for World First was off and running. I don't know how much that matters anymore. I feel like the Race for World First used to be a much bigger deal, and now it's, I don't know. I feel like the place that it holds. Yeah, I feel like the place that it holds in the community is not as important as it once was, and
yeah, maybe.
I don't know. Maybe it's because it's the same 3 people, same 3 guilds, 2 guilds that win all the time, and I don't know.
Yeah, and they make it seem arbitrary by tuning the raid during the run. So it's kind of like, well, you're just going to nerf it while they're in the middle of it. It kind of defeats the point, right? But I don't know.
It's true.
Some people love it. It still gets good viewership on Twitch, so I think it's just kind of like...
Does it?
Yeah, it does. It's always on top of Twitch when they do it, but it's like... It's always like it's the same through guilds. It's always the same community that watches it, you know. So.
Yeah.
I think esports in general just don't capture the zeitgeist like it used to. Like Overwatch, esports, esports for a little while, again, during the pandemic, esports was this massively hyped thing, but it always existed on these wafer thin margins. And since the pandemic's ended, there's no money. There was never any money. But during the pandemic, it looked like, oh, actually there might be some money. So they invested in it. After the pandemic, interest rates went up, venture capital dried up, and they realized, actually, this is not going anywhere. So I think the Race World First has suffered a bit from that, but there's a community around it, and I think Blizzard will keep doing it just to serve that community.
They need to jazz it up. They need like I know they do this like variety show, but they truly need like a game show. Like a real game show, like a host. I'm volunteering. That's what I'm doing. You need a real show, like a real something. Not these nerds that are doing what they're doing now. You need to jazz it up. You know, I'll be the Pat Sajak for the Race for World First. Do you know who Pat Sajak is? Is he global enough? Do you know who that is? the host of Wheel of Fortune game show here.
Oh, we have our own
United
host
States.
for Wheel of Fortune.
Oh, okay.
What's his name?
He was here for
He's
like
super
40
famous here.
years.
Yeah, we had Wheel of Fortune here as well, and it was like.
Oh,
Wheel
okay.
of Fortune.
You have your own version. There it is.
Actually, believe it or not. Oh, actually, no. It was American first. Usually, it's the other way
Oh.
around. Usually, America steals British shows, but this is actually, for once, an American creation. And our host was called
Merv Griffin.
Merv Griffin.
That is
Yeah,
best.
he created it as well.
Yep.
As he hosted it too, or
I don't remember if he hosted, but Pat Sajak was like the host for like 40 years. And he just retired, and now it's Ryan Seacrest who hosts it. I will not be the Ryan Seacrest, but I will be the Pat Sajak. I'm happy to do that. I volunteer.
it was John
Um,
Leslie, I suppose, is the famous host.
Okay. All right, you can be that one. I'll be this one. We can tag team it. That's how we could do it. For Nerebar Palace, we also saw for the first time the story mode, which was great for people like me who are not actively part of a raid team and still got to see the end of the raid with, AI team members, and that was pretty cool. I'm sure that they'll continue to flesh that out, but it was a great way to be able to complete the quests. There's always some quest to kill the final boss, and you never get to do it if you're not part of a certain team or whatever. But seeing it through LFR and doing the story mode, it was awesome. I loved it as a solo player. But for you, Jez, as somebody who is on a live and breathing raid team, what would you give for a final grade on Nerebar Palace, this first shot, first season raid and World Within?
I thought it was quite good. There was nothing in there that was too surprising or shocking, but I thought the run up to Ansarek was a bit weird. It's like, you fight through. This is supposed to be the Queen's Palace, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm supposed to believe this is the Queen's Palace, and then when you get to her, she's basically undefended. I mean, yeah, I get we fight for her lieutenants and stuff like that, but in my head, the queen of a colony will be surrounded by swarms of ads, and there is an ad phase in it, but it's like it's not many ads really.
Yeah.
So like, I think the climax of the raid, I think it was a bit anticlimactic. Queen Ansarek was quite an easy boss once they nerfed that one mechanic that was just a pain in the arse to deal with. I can't remember what it was now. They nerfed a specific mechanic. There's a mechanic where you have to like bounce over like a slime circle thing, and there was an issue where an overlapping mechanic was really, really hard to deal with. But once they nerfed that thing, I can't remember what it was, but they nerfed one aspect of the fight. It basically made the fight super easy. And then after that, we just completely cleared it a million times. So I think on heroic difficulty, I kind of want Blizzard to have another look at heroic difficulty, because it honestly feels like with heroic, it's like they basically give you the first 2/3 of the raid. It's like the first 2/3 of the raid are just brain dead easy. When, like, you go in there and you one shot every single boss if you've done it on normal, and then like it's like the last 3 bosses, the spike in difficulty is massive, and it's sort of like, oh okay, this is really hard. We were stuck on the Ovinax thing, that lava grub thing, for ages while the whole raid team like got to grips with the egg destroying order. I don't know, egg bosses where you have to kill eggs always ruin my guild for some reason. But overall, I think it was a good raid. I think pacing was a bit strange, difficulty scaling was a bit strange, but yeah, it was pretty good overall.
All right. So there we go. Season 1, decent raid. And then in October, we have our current patch launch, 11.0.5. This has all the 20th anniversary events, which was a whole revamp of that area out in Teneris, out by the Caverns of Time. And there's a whole slew of events still ongoing. So if you haven't done much of it, there's still plenty of time. You got at least another month where you'll be able to get out there and get your transmog if you want it, your anniversary transmog. There's a secret that's going on right now for the Fell Cycle, the green one, and they haven't quite solved it yet, so you got time to catch up, although I do understand that part of it involves using battle pets from other secrets, and that sounds irritating as shit to me, but there's guides. You can get out there. There's also a very long quest line related to guest relations. There's a whole thing about that, and I know that there's some emotional beats in there that folks might enjoy. So if you haven't gotten out there yet, it's still going on. October to now, it's, getting a little long on the tooth, looking at a couple of months. But that is still happening. We also had the Great Bruto drama back in October. I know you all remember that well and have already forgotten. But all that seems to have calmed down, like most of the catastrophes that happen around this place. And that leads us into November, where World of Warcraft officially turned 20 just a few weeks ago, and truly what a long, strange trip it has been. Last month they also announced patch 11.07 Siren Isle, but more importantly, they had Warcraft Direct. Finally had the Warcraft Direct last month, and not having a BlizzCon, we're all sitting around waiting. What are you going to tell us? What's going on? What's happening? And they talked about things for pretty much all the franchises going on related to Warcraft, but for us specifically, the long-awaited patch 11.1 was announced. Undermined, as we talked about last time, we're going to be liberating Undermine, taking on Gallywix. There's going to be ground mounts going wild. It's going to be a whole crazy goblin adventure. They also talked about player housing. They teased player housing, and that's something that there's been much discussion since. They're very open to hearing about Blizzard is what we want it to be, what it should or shouldn't be. And Jez, you and I kind of theorized what that could look like and some questions that they probably should ask themselves about all of this. And of course, we got a 2025 roadmap. We got a sense of what is coming next year. So not just the 1107 patch, which is happening imminently, but the Undermine patch in 11.1. And then it looks like spring into summer, something very bad is probably going to happen with, it looks like, no season 4. And this time next year, we're going to be probably in the throes of midnight. We talked about there's going to be an expansion reveal late summer. Whatever happens in season 3, whatever that new zone and raid in 11.2 is, a lot of people theorize it's going to be something related to ethereals or something in that zone, that realm. But it's going to go bad. We all seem to think it's going to go bad, and probably because they told us so back at BlizzCon. But then looking ahead at this player housing being part of Midnight, and this time next year, we looks like we should have it. We should be in our houses. There's probably some sort of Legion remix happening right about now. A year from now, if I'm listening back on this or looking at my notes, we'll see how correct all of that is. But again, giving us a good idea of what to expect next year. And we have really no reason to believe that they're not going to hit these marks, because they have been now for several years. And it gives us an opportunity to also plan out catching up on our potential backlog of games, depending on how much we are invested in certain parts of these sub patches. But overall, I think the world, the Warcraft Direct, I think it delivered what it needed to. But for Jez, what was the most impactful thing you thought came out of that Warcraft Direct? Because you got to see it early.
I did get to see it early. It was player housing for me, man, easily. I knew that I kind of used to the season cycle now. And it's like, obviously there was a new season coming, and if you pay attention to the lore, the hints in game, it's kind of obvious that it was going to be goblin themed. So I was kind of like, not totally surprised that it was goblin themed. But it was nice to see Undermine, because my goblin homies, we've been waiting to see Undermine for a long time, so it's really great to see that realized, and I expect a lot of goblin RP will shift over to there, but it looks like they realized it in a really cool way. It's going to be cool to see Gazlo of Heroes of the Storm fame come into his own, and also it's so I love that stuff. But for me, it was player housing, man. Like, when I interviewed them about the first time I interviewed them in London, it was I think it was Maria Hamilton I spoke to. That's her name, right? Maria Hamilton. I spoke to her about player housing, and I was it seemed like she seemed almost annoyed that I'd asked the question. Like she was fed up of getting that question all the time, right? So I was like, oh God, I've asked a dumb question here. But she must have been sitting there knowing the whole time, where it's like, yeah, we know we're working on it, okay? So maybe they're working on it just to get people to shut up asking about it. But it just makes sense for a game like this to have ways you can express yourself, right? And one of the most popular things they've added to the game in recent years has been transmog. And it's kind of like, well, what's the natural extension of transmog? You know, if you customize your character, the natural extensions of that are either like mount customization, which they've done with dragons and that little dirigible thing from the delves, but they can't apply that to all mounts, you know. So, well, maybe they could, but it would be a lot of work. So if they're going to do something from the ground up, something new, something fresh, it just kind of makes sense. Player housing, you know, you could tie a profession to it. You could tie every profession to it, really. You know, you could have tailors making carpets for player houses. You could have engineers making little ornaments, blacksmiths making like decorative swords or whatever. It's just a really cool feature that could feed a lot of other permanent aspects of the game. But it always felt like they just didn't want to do it for whatever reason. Like they were thinking like too much investment, too complicated. Will people actually use it? But I suppose with the rise of popularity of Final Fantasy XIV and the fact that Final Fantasy XIV's player housing is so popular that it drains server resources, you know, which is an issue for them, but it shouldn't be an issue for Activision Blizzard with Microsoft, the cloud company, you know, working together. Yeah. Shouldn't be so much of an issue. It's like, you know, and games like The Sims are so popular, man. They are so popular. You know, where you can make your own little house, have all your little pets running around. Fallout 76, you know, making your base is like essential gameplay in that game. You know, Minecraft, for God's sake. First thing you fire up a new Minecraft server, you make your little base, bro. So, yeah, I'm glad to see they've finally got their head out of the sand and realised that player housing is the GOAT feature that should have been in the game decades ago. But, yeah, that was for me. That was it for me. Warcraft Direct, player housing, hype mode engaged.
Oh, there it is. Well, yeah, my interest is peaked. I'll say that. My interest is peaked. We'll see what happens. I've always wondered, you know, I have said and I maintain I will have an active subscription to this game as long as there is one server left on this planet that's running the fucking thing. So I very well could have it in my estate, you know, that when I die, you know, it just continues to be paid out in perpetuity forever. But I've always wondered, like, if my character were to retire, where would they retire to? I always assumed it was going to be like Karazhan or something, but, you know, maybe, you know, with a nice house, a place to put my shit. Well, maybe that's the spot. So we'll see. But people, get out there, get on the forums, give your feedback. They're asking for it actively right now as we speak. We're coming now into December, and we're still, you know, early-ish December, but we are on the verge of the next big chapter of this expansion, of this franchise, of the whole kit and caboodle. You know, we know Undermined is next, but we don't really know why Undermined is the place. They insist that this is integral to the story, and this relates to the larger story that's being told with Xalatath and everything else, and we haven't quite, I think, seen what that connection is all about, so mysteries still abound, and then what comes after that, we assume it's bad, but we don't really know. But 11.07, the next patch is hitting on December 17th. So next week, we will have another patch coming, and this will be taking us to the mysterious Siren Isle, where there is a former Azerite mining operation that was happening here on this island. These Kultirans, they were doing God knows what there, and then they disappeared. Don't know what happened. Mysteries abound, apparently, and we'll be heading out there and siding with Arathi Earthen or goblins to earn certain rewards or open up caves where there's baddies and treasure, and We have a new ring, a Circe's circlet, which will have different gems that you can slot in there and give yourself some boosts. And it's generally, it seems like it's meant to be a catch-up spot where you get your alts geared up and do different things and be ready for patch 11.1 when that fires up. It looks like probably mid to late January is kind of how this is shaping up. So that's coming right around the corner. Should be some new activity, and we'll see what sort of secrets abound there, because they have made it a point to say that there is stuff there that hasn't been found or needs to be found or something. So hopefully that piques folks' interest. But that's where we are. That's the year that has been in World of Warcraft. It's really been
a year.
Quite a seesaw, ups and downs all over the place. Again, going back to when we had layoffs kicking off the year, and we had probably one of the best expansion launches of all time towards the middle and the end. It's really been a seesaw ride, but a very important year for World of Warcraft, and a huge one, and things continue to look positive, I think, for World of Warcraft. But for you, Jez, final word looking back on this year. Any final thoughts? Any parting thoughts on 2024?
I don't know, man. Final thoughts. I suppose, it's going to be interesting to see how Microsoft messes with Battle.net. Because I don't know if you noticed, but there's a big advert for Indiana Jones on Battle.net right now. And there's also...
I did not know.
Yeah, there's a big advert for Indiana Jones on Battle.net, even though you can't buy it there.
Oh.
Which links to Xbox.com. And then there's also Avowed, which is an upcoming RPG from Microsoft, from Obsidian. Right. That's available to buy in Battle.net. But also, if you've got Xbox Game Pass, you don't even have to buy it, but you can install it from Battle.net, which is very, very strange. So they're like pulling some weird experiments with Battle.net right now, Microsoft is. So I'm wondering what their direction is going to be for Battle.net, whether they're going to put all of Xbox's PC stuff into Battle.net, like PC Game Pass, all that stuff. Because right now they've got their Xbox PC app, which is okay, not the best. Battle.net is a lot better, but at the same time, I don't know how Blizzard players would feel about all of Game Pass, PC Game Pass, suddenly flooding into Battle.net, and then Microsoft ditching their own app store for it. So that'd be interesting to see how Microsoft handles all that stuff. But how would you feel about that, by the way? If all of a sudden you logged into Battle.net and then there was suddenly a Game Pass page and there were games like Forza, Flight Simulator, Stalker 2 all over the screen, would that bother you? Or would you just be like...
Honestly, I'm pretty agnostic to it because, I mean, I never played Call of Duty, but there was a new Call of Duty always being flashed at me, or whether it was back in the days when Destiny 2 was part of the family, and that was always being put up every time I brought up Battle.net. So I don't know. I kind of don't... It's almost white noise at this point, where I just click out of it and don't pay attention, and I'm like, I'm just going to Warcraft. So, I mean... They could put almost anything up there, and I don't know that, like, I'd care, honestly. As long as it's not getting in my way in a way that's so difficult to then move. As long as I can just click the X and get out of the advert, don't care. It's fine. Whatever. Yeah. Well, as we close up this episode, as I am want to do on these year-end things, I do want to leave with a final comment. And first, Jez, I want to thank you for joining me on this journey and continuing to do so, and taking a chance on this little show, because I mean, Xbox 2 is a fucking enormous show. It's one of the top gaming podcast streams, whatever you guys call it. It's one of the top ones, like, in the world. And so to come here to this little rinky-dink operation and hang out with me and talk World of Warcraft, I can't say enough how much I appreciate it. I've really enjoyed having you here and getting your perspective on things. And you're just a rad dude, so it's just fun to chat with you about something we love. So first, I just want to say thank you to you for coming on here and hanging out with me.
I appreciate that, man. I mean, you're a lot more organized than we are on the Xbox show. We were just lucky with Xbox 2 because we came in early when Xbox was moving over to the internet more and more and more. And I think we were one of the first sort of non-IGN Xbox podcasts. A really big one, so... Yeah, I really like doing the show with you, and you make it very easy and fun to do, so well, thank you, sir.
Good. Well, you're most welcome, and looking forward to next year because it's going to be another fucking banger. But finally, on this final comment, I used to do on this show, there used to be a segment, and I didn't really have anything else better to call it, so I just called it Under the Helm, which was sort of like my opportunity to talk about real life, real world stuff. And I talked about, like the car accident, the vehicle accident that I was in, God, 12 years ago now, that, irreparably fucked up my spine, problems that I still have today and continue to degrade, and and talking about that and those sorts of challenges. And I don't really, just as an example, I don't really do that segment or anything like that anymore, and I haven't in a long time anyway. And even though this show has served as part diary, as I mentioned before, for myself, but I guess to sort of bring that feeling and that idea back, just as a sort of check-in with your old host here. Being honest with all of you, I have never been more worried about the state of the world than I am right now. It is the first time in my entire life when I have felt that the world is going to be worse after my lifetime than in previous parts of my life, where I felt like we were continuing to improve little by little. Things were going to get better, and things were going to improve, and things were going to be better for everyone. And that, yeah, there would be challenges along the way, but we would continue to progress as a society, as a species. And I truly am worried for the first time in a way that I've never been. Mike Pondsmith, who is the creator of Cyberpunk, is famous for saying that, Cyberpunk was a warning, not an aspiration. And I truly feel like, unfortunately, we are headed down a road that leads to some very unfortunate ends. And I don't know what the solution is. I don't know what to do other than what I can do locally for myself, and what I would encourage for all of you, to find something each day that you can do to make things better for yourself, for your community, for your family, for your friends. To start small, because I think that that's ultimately how we can right a ship that I think is careening in the wrong direction. Back here at World of Warcraft, last year I was very grateful to see the resurgence of World of Warcraft, and I still am. The renaissance continues, and let me tell you, what we are experiencing with World of Warcraft right now is a very rare and awesome thing. And as somebody who's lived as long as I've lived, I'm telling you, really have to enjoy these moments, because they do not come along very often. So truly revel in each of these days. Enjoy the resurgence of this game. It's gonna have its ebbs and flows, because somewhere along the line they're gonna fuck up again. It'll go on a long enough timeline. It's just bound to happen. And so, when we're riding the high like this, you really, really got to enjoy it. Looking into next year, right? Unshackled Fury is going to be 10. We're turning 10 on this show. 10 freaking years of this dumb little show. So I'm excited about that. And I'm hoping that we can get something good or fun or big for you folks. I know I'm going to be hammering on Blizzard to help me out and get me a good guest for all of that. But Amidst all of this, I really am appreciative, and I really do appreciate every single one of you that listens to this for giving me some of your very precious and valuable time, because there's a million things that you could be listening to more than my ranting. There's so many options now, so many streams, so many shows, so much music. We have access to so much now. And for you to spend any amount of time to listen to this, I appreciate it so much. And all the great feedback that we get, the community, albeit small, that we've built is fantastic. You I truly believe we have the best listeners here, and I thank you all for being here. So the last thing I want to say is for all of you to just enjoy this holiday season for whatever it is for you. Try to do one small thing every day to help either yourself or somewhere in your community. And please, please, please take care of yourselves out there, because as wild as 2024 was, 2025 is probably going to be even crazier, but I and we will still be here. All right. I think we've done enough damage for one episode in 1 year. So for those who don't already know, where can the good people find you on the internet, Jez?
I'm on everything. I'm on Blue Sky a lot now at jezcorden.com. In fact, you can just go to jezcorden.com, JZCORDEN, like James Corden, to find all my links and stuff like that, if you are so inclined. And yeah.
There you go. And my thanks to all of you for listening. And remember, you can follow me and the show on Twitter, which I don't really use other than just posting stuff for the show. But I'm at Berserker Rage and Unshackled _Fury. But Blue Sky, I think we're all sort of migrating over there. Jez, you need to follow me in the show. I don't know what you're waiting for. Follow us on Blue Sky, Jez. Berserker and Unshackled Fury. As well as on Twitch at Unshackled Fury and Real Berserker. You can also join our Discord, links for which are in the profile of the show on Twitter and on our bonus roll page. You can feel free to contact the show with your questions, comments, or otherwise through any of those resources or unshackledfury.com, which you need to start sending questions to, so Jez and I can do a Q&A on the episodes. Come on now. And you can find the show wherever you get your podcasts. So once again, thank you for listening. Remember to keep your swords wet and your banners high. And we'll see you next year. Farewell.